Welcome to Professional Quotient, where we have conversations that build professional equity. And what we mean by this is your professional equity are your skills, your knowledge, your education, your experience, and the network and community you've built up around yourself. I'm your host, Jason Winningham, and today we have a very special guest, Mike Ahura. Mike, would you like to introduce yourself to us?
Sure. Mike Ahura. Currently, I run SemperMind. It's a talent development solutions company based here in Atlanta, Georgia. We help people and organizations grow through customized learning around sales, communication, and coaching. Before launching SemperMind, I led enterprise learning at CBRE. And then I spent about 11 years in various leadership roles at Iron Mountain, including head of talent management. And what really gets me excited now, wakes me up in the morning, is creating some awesome immersive learning.
Awesome. So can I ask you, what does a typical day look like for you? Or do you even have a typical day?
Oh gosh. So running my own business now, and you can relate, days and weeks are varied. I split my time between consulting with clients on development needs, designing, training, marketing, having sales calls with potential clients, facilitating or prepping for one of our programs. I particularly enjoy the program development piece, but it is super time consuming, as you can imagine. And I've also been finishing up my first book, which I'm about to publish. So that's taken up a huge amount of my time.
You said you get excited about preparing for some of these sessions. Can you talk to us about what these sessions are and how people could find them and get involved in them?
Yeah, so we really have three flagship programs. We can customize any type of learning, do bespoke where somebody calls us and says, I have this challenge or this gap. We can develop any type of training, but we really have three core flagship programs. One is called Semper Selling. It's a methodology that I created for modern sellers because I think the last time that a methodology was released was 2015, and it was Challenger. And Challenger and Medic have been updated. But I created it because I saw a niche where I think there's a lot of sellers that are struggling right now. So that's around masterful preparation, strategic curiosity, and skillful adaptation. And I teach them how to do that in real time with customers. Communication intelligence is what I partnered with Lauren on, which is a fantastic program. And the two of us partnered with the Forte Institute, where they have the world's only validated communication strengths assessment. And we built a training program around it to help people build better connections with friends, colleagues, family members. And the last one I partnered with Paul Plamondon on is called Coaching Conversations. And this one's around helping managers or leaders become more effective coaches for their employees.
It sounds like really fantastic work that you're doing because you're really building people up so that they can succeed. Did you have anybody that influenced you in your development that kind of inspired you to get into this field, or was this something you were always interested in?
I would say if I had to point to one catalyst, Stephen Covey. I was at a company called Hughes Supply and got introduced to the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And after going through it, I just got the bug for not only doing training, but creating it. And it was from watching the facilitator and being immersed in the training and going through everything that had such a huge impact on myself that I'm like, oh my gosh, I could totally see myself doing this in front of big groups and being a game changer for organizations. And I got certified to teach it, been certified in other sales methodologies and things like that along the way. And I was lucky enough to actually meet him before he passed away in Orlando. And it's just a fantastic experience.
So here on Professional Quotient, we like to focus on that professional equity side. Equity, just like financial equity, it's something that we can make deposits on, we can get dividends from, we can leverage it. And this is, as I said at the start of our call, it's our experiences, our skills, our education, our knowledge, and the network of people around us. Out of those things in your professional equity, what do you find to be the most valuable?
Gosh. So my professional equity, I would say I've that I value most. My unique combination of skills. Look, I've developed this across sales training, HR leadership, talent development. I call myself a professional mutt because I started my career as a sales trainer after the Marine Corps. And that gave me a deep understanding of revenue generation, frontline performance. That experience proved invaluable when I got tapped on the shoulder to run HR and I had no HR management in my background. My master's degree in HR development helped me bridge the two worlds. But I would say that this cross functional perspective helps me speak the language of both the C suite all the way down to frontline employees. And I think that's what people value about me. And I love the unique combination because it in organizations, doesn't matter now if I'm doing it consulting or if when I was with CBRE or others, I get to break down silos, which we know happens quite a bit, and create development solutions, these immersive type of experiences that truly move the needle for folks, not just professionally, which is great. We see the metrics, but personally, they come back and they say, oh my gosh, it transformed a relationship that I have with my mom or my dad or my loved one. And that's when it really hits home. But that's what I would say about my professional equity.
That's awesome. And I totally agree. When we're developing ourselves professionally, it does benefit our personal lives as well, because those things overlap very much. Are there challenges that you've been able to overcome in developing your professional equity?
Throughout my career, I have faced numerous situations where people doubted my capabilities. And I would say overcoming those doubts has been central to building my professional quotient. Now, the Marine Corps was my first major challenge. Joining the now as a choice, but joining the toughest fighting force in the world and succeeding gave me a foundation of resilience. Later, becoming a sales trainer with no prior sales experience required me to rapidly develop expertise, especially around 11 different product lines within Hughes Supply. One of my most significant professional leaps came when I told you I was tapped on the shoulder by a president when I was the L&D director to run HR. And I had no HR management experience. So that trial by fire taught me how to leverage transferable skills. On a personal level, I would say becoming a father to two girls, later battling prostate cancer, fundamentally changed my perspective on leadership and purpose. And each of these challenges forced me to develop new capabilities and integrate them with existing skill set. But yeah, there's been a ton of challenges. And what I've discovered is that my professional quotient grows most dramatically, not during comfortable times. And I'm sure you've had a lot of people tell you this, but when I'm literally forced to rise to seemingly impossible challenges that you're just sitting back going, how am I going to get through this? And that's been like the story of my career, just one event after another, and succeeding through those has been just an awesome experience for me because I've always come out on the other side better.
I like that. And it's so true there. If you're not experiencing growing pains, you're probably not growing. So now you said at the start of that you were overcoming doubts people had. A lot of people will share that they're battling self-doubt. This sounded a little bit like external doubt. So how do you go about having those kind of conversations and proving yourself, whether to yourself, but more importantly, I guess in your situation, proving yourself to others then?
Well, and you bring up a good point. Lauren and I talk about this a lot, where the negative voices in our head are loud. It doesn't matter who you are. And trying to drown them out just yourself can be a challenge. What I've found is through journaling and some other methods, getting my emotions out instead of suppressing them has helped immensely. And the other thing that helps, be it somebody challenging us from externally or the internal voices, is like if I were to call you and say, the internal voices right now, Jason, are really, really, really loud. And having you just talk through it with me. Lauren does that for me all the time. Paul does it for me all the time. Sister does it. wife does it. And I've found that if you're able to talk through your emotions, like early in my career, I would just suppress stuff. Parents got divorced, suppressed it. Big challenge, suppressed it. Bullied in school, suppressed it. And it manifests. It's physical, it could be back pain, could be whatever. But those two things, journaling and being able to have a partner or partners that help talk you off the proverbial ledge and just bring that positivity where you're like, yep, you're right. I got this.
Can I ask, did you formally reach out to Lauren and say, can you serve in this capacity? Or is this something you just naturally developed with Lauren and Paul and your wife and sister? Like, is this something you've had a conversation beforehand? So if somebody wants to try this mechanism out in their own life, should they say, I need you to serve in this capacity? Or should they just embrace a relationship and then utilize them at times?
It's more the latter than the former. It's not like we had formal conversations. It would be like with Lauren and Paul, it would be over the course of, almost 3 years that we worked together, having vulnerability questions that we would talk through and share a bunch of information about each other, but also talking about the negative voices just in general and how we need each other to be able to get over that hurdle sometimes, and you don't have to go it alone. So, those that go to counseling and stuff, I completely understand that because it's a similar type of process or cadence with our peers, our friends. As you know, I mean, everybody struggles with on a daily basis. And to be able to have somebody like that to be able to reach out to. Now, on the flip side, the former piece, yeah, I mean, you could formally bring it up to somebody and say, hey, I'm having some really, really loud negative voices in my head. I'd love to talk through it with you. And just watch the compassion and empathy flow from friends and family as you go through that is just it's a transformative experience for a lot of people. It's just, you have to do it. You actually have to engage in conversation.
Absolutely. I love that you're talking about this because I think a lot of times in society, we call that the imposter voice or the imposter syndrome voice. I'm not the hugest fan of that because it kind of implies that you are an imposter. You feel like this imposter when it's really self-doubt. But I've also in my own mind created a reposture voice. So it's almost like the imposter voice is the devil on one shoulder and the voice is this angel on the other. I find in my own personal journey that there are times when it's hard to believe the positive side. And especially if it's someone close that's saying, oh, Jason, you're so good at XYZ, whatever it is. My brain thinks, I'm just average. I'm just doing it. Do you equally hear that when you're getting that positive viewpoint? And how do you kind of allow it to have more of a balance and accept that positive voice?
Oh my gosh, it's so funny that you share that because that's how I typically will convey it to people is the two people, yin and yang that pop up on opposite sides of your body. That if you acknowledge it, like I talk to my negative voice, I swear at my negative voice all the time, telling it to shut up or be quiet but that took a lot of self-reflection on my part and awareness to finally acknowledge it, to finally say, as you're let's say I'm about to walk out and do a presentation. The person will pop up and go, dude, you're gonna fail. You're gonna fail miserably. They're gonna hate you. And then I'll start with, you need to shut your mouth. And then now the positive one pops up and says, you got this. You're going to crush it. But early on in my career, early on in life, you don't have the wherewithal to create this positive, entity that drowns out the other side. But the combination of acknowledging it and actually talking to it, like somebody probably think I'm crazy sometimes because I'm actually talking out loud to this invisible negative voice, but also creating this positive persona that drowns this out. And it gets to a point, though, where the negative voice sometimes, especially if we've made a mistake or we did something in front of a group that embarrassed us. This becomes magnified, and then that's where Lauren, Paul, yourself, others that you could reach out to become important to say, dude, it's okay. You're fine. And talk through it. I'm sorry you had to go through that. What were you feeling? And as humans, we just tend not to do that. We just suppress it down.
And it's funny because oftentimes the things that have that megaphone, the things that have the magnifying glass on it in our own minds are usually nothing. They're not even remembered by other people. I remember there were times when even filming podcasts that I have yet to publish, but in reviewing them to edit them, there were moments that I thought, oh, I need to cut that out because I had this long pause where I was thinking of my next question. And then I get to the video and it's like, actually, that was like a fraction of a second. It wasn't that long ago, but and in reality, when you are giving a speech or whatnot, you might stumble over a word, but nobody else is going to remember that. Like they're hearing the message of what you're saying. They're not analyzing. Did you say 15 times? Well, they might do that. Some people do count ums, but apart from that, there's it's usually not as big of a deal to others as it is to ourselves.
I completely agree. Yeah, we magnify it ourselves.
Mm-hmm. And there was a time I was wrestling with something like that, and it was keeping me up at night. I remember it was that ugly voice telling me, I'm never going to be successful at X, Y, Z, all these things actually were flooding. And it was the first time in my life where that reposture voice kind of spoke up. And it was more of a reminding of the accomplishments I've already had, the successes I've already had. And it just said, hey, you've been good at this. You've done this. You've led this. You've got this. And I remember it wasn't a shout. It was just kind of a quiet whisper, but it was enough to settle that doubt so that I could go to sleep, which was so thankful on that night. Cause I think that was like 3 a.m. and I just wasn't sleeping.
I'm just picturing as you're saying that with the quiet, intense voice. I'm just picturing my dad when I was in the backseat of the car and he'd slam on the brakes and turn around and get his face right next to mine and go, I am going to stop this car and I'm going to spank you. So it was just that quiet intensity where you're like, and I just picture the negativity as you were saying that going, all right, then I'm just going to sit here in the corner and shut my mouth.
Absolutely. Get in the backseat negativity. I don't want to hear it.
Yes,
But sometimes we
absolutely.
can use that negative voice too, because sometimes it can say, you don't know enough about this, let's say, industry. Okay, well, I can acknowledge that. I can learn from that voice and learn more about it. So it's not always a prohibitive, you best not move forward. Sometimes you can hear it and say, there's some truth that I can work with. But it still involves the positive angel side saying, learn it, work with it.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. So if somebody were looking at your career and they were saying, I want to do what Mike does, what kind of advice would you give them?
I would say embrace being underestimated because it creates opportunities to exceed expectations and build resilience. I would say develop cross-functional expertise rather than just trying to stay in one lane, because my experience has been that ultimately the unique perspectives, like putting yourself in other people's shoes and gaining that experience, versus a purely specialized track, um, lends itself to success. And become fluent in the language of business. Like look at business holistically. So if you're in learning and development, like myself, it would be learning to connect people development directly to business metrics that senior executives care about. So they see it as an investment versus a cost center. And find a mentor or coach that you admire within a business or externally that you can have conversations with on a regular basis that help propel you forward. My one big miss I look back on that I think would have helped me more, and I've had some great mentors and coaches, but making the investment into some type of coach, professional coach, that could have helped me accelerate and amplify what I was doing. Instead of, a lot of times we have to do the trial by fire to learn it. And that, if I look back, that's one thing I would do differently. But those would be the two or three things that I would say.
I like that. And I'd love to follow back up with you on the coaching. So let's assume somebody has never had a job coach or a career coach. What does that relationship look like? And what is the benefit of that and having that?
Yeah, so I'll give you a personal experience where I was introduced to my first coach, and how this can be so powerful. When I was tapped on the shoulder by a president to lead HR, when I'd always been in L&D, master's HR development, but I hadn't done HR management. I said to the president, one, I want you to pay for me to go get my SHRM certification so people see me as credible. So I did that. But I said, I also want to coach because I was interim. I wasn't in the role full time. So I had to prove myself. And I was going through each week with the coach who was a former CHRO, walking through things with me. And it would just open my eyes to stuff I had never considered. It headed off a lot of challenges and pitfalls I would have encountered. And having that dialogue, and you have to be willing to take feedback and act on it. I can remember vividly, I was offered the role full time, but I first had to give a presentation to the board on what my strategy was going to be for the next year and a half. And I said to my coach, I have no idea. And my coach helped me craft the presentation and the talk tracks, and I blew the board away. They were like just enamored with everything that was so spot on. And there's no way I would have been able to do that without a coach.
Now, you said she helped you. Can I just get how? She didn't give you your plan.
Correct. She would say, Mike, let's talk through what the president's asking. So what are some of the strategic priorities? Okay. And then she would ask me the question. Okay, if they're asking that, she just give me the answer. What do you think that they're asking for here? And then we'd have a conversation. And then, almost like you were talking to a parent when you were young, she'd go, that's outstanding. Write that down. That's what they're looking for here. And you need to put that in the presentation. And she just guided me through it and got me to a point where it pushed me out of the nest and said, you're ready. You go do this, crush it. And it was just that positive voice and having those conversations with somebody who had been there, done that, and been super successful. If you made that investment, similar to most pro athletes have coaches, most professional singers, you name it, actors, everybody has a coach. Making that investment, even a monetary investment, my experience has been that it pays off tenfold if the person's the right person and they're credible. It pays off intensely over the course of your conversations with that person. And I didn't do that early enough in my career, because at that point I was 42 when I got the coach. So think of, the 20 years that had gone by without someone in my life. But yeah, it was transformative for sure.
Thank you for providing more context to that, because I really wanted to drive home to any listeners that a coach isn't just giving you things, they're drawing things out from you that are already there.
Who's masterful at that is Mr. Plamondon. The fact
Absolutely.
he's certified coactive coach, and he teaches our coaching conversations. But Paul, and what makes him a great coach is he does exactly that. He's super genuine, soft spoken, disarms you and other people and teaches you how to do that with others. And it just becomes transformative. I've been on calls with him where he's coaching someone in a virtual room with like 10 other people. And the other 9 said, "What just happened? That was amazing." She went from sounding feeble and scared to like she was a CHRO. And it was just that conversation within minutes that Paul had with this person. Yeah, it's pretty awesome to watch.
That's awesome. And what a high recommendation for Paul's work there. So appreciate that. I was going to ask you if you could recommend somebody that we should have as a guest on this podcast. I'm already writing Paul Plumundon's name down on that. So is there anybody else you would recommend we feature here?
It just depends. What type of background would you want for somebody that might lend itself? Because I could go the sales route, coaching. I could go L&D. It just depends on really what you're looking for.
Well, on this podcast, we're definitely in my mind, our goal is to really provide context to how to navigate the professional landscape for those that don't have somebody like a family member or they don't already have a mentor in the business. And because for my own personal story, I started off in the print room 20 years ago, and I didn't know what I was going to do. My mom was a teacher. My dad was a landscaper and a janitor and then a firefighter, and had odd jobs along the way that we all did. But my family wasn't really in the professional world. And so when I entered it, that coupled with the fact that I'm neurodivergent, I felt like I had to learn things my own way very difficultly. And so what I was hoping is that through these conversations, listeners will be able to find somebody that's within their field, hear that voice, and start getting a game plan together. And so my goal in our conversations here is to hear from people left to right, top to bottom, because there's all kinds of roles out there that will resonate with different people. And so I'm making it as open-ended as possible in that sense.
Yeah. I have a friend of mine, his name is Zach Horn, that he's a VP of sales with a company called CoFile. And I think he'd be a great person to talk to, just because of his background, through sales management and his experiences, and super articulate. And I think is would be able to drop some knowledge and some helpful hints to your audience.
Oh, awesome. I would appreciate that. Awesome. And I know our time is coming short, but I would love for for you to have a spotlight here to talk about anything else that you'd like to share with us or just shine a light on it.
Yeah, for me running my own business, I would just tout our 3 flagship programs. Semper Selling, the book that I'm about to publish, is all about conquering the new sales terrain and leveraging new skills in a world that has AI and post-COVID and all these things. Communication intelligence. If you want to become a better relationship builder, build better connections with the people that you love and work with, it's unprecedented because the Forte Institute, the assessment we've built the program around, 40 years of validity at 90%, 6.5 million of their profiles have been taken. So we know it works. And the Coaching Conversations program is just phenomenal because you've got someone like Paul Plumondon who leads it and can be a game changer if you truly want to take your managerial skills to the next level with your employees, be it in sales or in any other profession. And he's just fantastic. And just overall, if you need customized learning, that's the difference for SemperMind, is that instead of a generic type of learning session, we customize it down to your fonts and your brand colors so that you are being taught things that you can immediately use that you're probably experiencing on a day-to-day basis. So you can go to sempermind.com, which has all of the offerings, or they could just ping me at mike@sempermind.com to set up conversations. And I post on LinkedIn on a regular basis about a whole slew of different things. But Yeah, I would love for people to reach out and find out what we're all about.
Awesome. Well, we really appreciate your time with us today here, Michael. And we just want to remind the audience that if you've enjoyed this conversation, please like, share, and leave a positive review. And then remember that just like your IQ and your EQ, we have a PQ. And this can easily be raised every day by learning, building, and connecting. Until next time.